Everyone, it's me, Russ of Aquarimax, and it's Wednesday at 5:30 US Mountain Time. Usually I've been doing this on Tuesdays, but that didn't work out this week, so I'm trying Wednesday, and it actually looks like for the rest of the summer at least, Wednesday is going to be a better day. I'm also looking into doing some once I get off of work, which I'll have about a month off during the summer. I may do that as well. Hey, Little Bob, you're with us. Nice. Thanks for joining. Cool Kid, awesome. Hey. Hi, welcome. You look familiar. I think I know you. Polar, hi. Welcome everyone. So yeah, this summer I may be doing some live streams during an earlier part of the day to kind of accommodate some of the people who can't do this time, because I know this is a hard time for some people and it's easy for others. Jordan Baker, I just got a baby morning gecko and she turns white sometimes. Is that normal? It is very common for them to change color and to become much paler and much darker depending on how much light they're getting and their emotional state and so on. You know, like blindingly paper white, that would be very unusual. But if your gecko is just becoming very pale, then that's pretty normal. Carter Bing, good evening, welcome. Little Bob, I missed the last one. Yeah, I missed you last time, but I'm glad you're here. And thanks for being a moderator again. It's pretty awesome. I always appreciate your help. It's good to see you again here. Krista Lewis, welcome back. Hunter's Channel, hello. And, oh wow. Little Bob just got the casts you had on for the last 6 weeks. Off today, congratulations, that must feel good. Wow, I didn't know that you were in casts, but I'm glad to know that you're done. Wow, we've already got 4 likes, that's awesome. It's a great start, 13 people in the house. So, what is going on today? What kinds of questions do you have? I've got a few things going on. Well, Little Bob says the people behave here, so I don't have to use my mod powers. That's usually true, but that's a good thing. Animals Are Life said, do you have any mantids? And if not, do you have any plans to get some? I have had mantids before. In fact, I had one fairly recently. I don't have any right now, but I would love to get another one. I'm hoping to get one at some point this summer, spring or summer. Yeah, I've kept Carolina mantids, and then I've also kept for a short time a Hierodula mantis, and I really thought it was great, but it had a problem, probably a premolt issue, and it ended up passing away before it reached maturity, when I was very sad about that. Mark Osborne says, hey Russ, how goes? It's going well. I'm pretty excited to be here. I'm glad you're here, so thanks for joining us. And I'm excited about all the videos that are coming up. I have so many videos and so little time. I wish I could just do this full time. It'd be fun. I would totally do that. So Little Bob says you should get a pair of corn snakes. You know, I like corn snakes. I may do that sometime. They're one of my favorite snakes. I've worked with various snakes. I've owned a couple. It's been a long time. But at a zoo I worked with an eastern indigo snake and some ball python, of course, and there were quite a few. There was a black king snake. There were all kinds of snakes actually that I got to work with, and they were fun. Hunter's Channel. What do you recommend with a Pictus catfish, skirt tetras, a bristlenose pleco, and guppies? I'm upgrading from a 46 to a 75 soon. Let's see. Kind of depends on how many you have of those, because the guppies are eventually going to populate that tank quite a bit, but the Pictus cat may have something to say about it, because the Pictus cat is going to reach a size where it could probably decimate your guppies, so to speak. So what do you have in terms of numbers for those fish in the 75 or in the 46? That's going to be a 75. Nancy C, hi, says starting to get into millipedes. Cool. What kinds are you keeping right now? You've probably seen some of my videos on millipedes, and I'm pretty excited about, I got to tell you what I did this weekend. My son and I got to go to, it was a bug festival. It was technically called the Ladybug Festival, but it was really just bug themed in general. And they invited us to come do bug presentations. My son and I did it. And it was really fun. And one of the things that we got to do, we brought some of our millipedes. We brought our Spirostreptus species 1, which is about a 6-inch millipede. And then we brought a group of bumblebee millipedes. And one of the most popular things, those were 2 of the most popular things. I think the most popular things that I brought were isopods, including one of my titans. I brought, like I said, the millipedes, the bumblebee millipedes, the Spirostreptus species 1, and the tailless whip scorpion, the Damon diadema. They were some of the most popular things that we brought, and we had like a constant stream of people almost the whole time, 2 hours, people just coming by the booth and interacting with us and with the animals that we brought, and they loved to hold the bumblebee millipedes. That's one of the things we let them actually hold in their hands, and they were really excited about it. So millipedes definitely have some star power, and I'm glad you're getting into them. I really enjoy them. Jordan Baker says, I'm also attempting a pillbug color morph. About how long do they take to multiply as adults? Depends on the species. If you're talking about Armadillidium vulgare, if they're already adults, you could have babies within a few weeks, even shorter. I mean, I've had sometimes, you know, you capture an adult that already has Mancke in its pouch, and then you could have babies within a couple of days. But if you're waiting for them to grow up, it could take a lot longer. But yeah, if you already had adults, then really, really soon. In terms of producing babies, the babies take a while to grow up. So it could be, you know, sometimes they can take a year or more to mature, but they will completely like get full size, but they can reproduce before that. They can reproduce at about 1/3 of their full adult size. Little Bob says, maybe a Mexican black king snake. If I were to suggest a first snake, it would be a corn snake. It's better for beginner than a ball pythons, in my opinion. Harder to handle, but not by much. Yeah, those are two of the ones that I've read about, because my daughter was really interested in getting a snake for a while, and she eventually settled on getting a budgie instead. But corn snake and ball python were two of the ones we really looked at. And actually we mostly looked at corn snake because that appealed to her more. Hunter's Channel says, he does eat my baby guppies but leaves alone the big ones. Okay, the Pictus cat. Yeah, he will eventually not leave alone the big ones, but at least right now I guess you have a population control that could be bad or good, but in terms of the size of the tank, it gives us an idea. 2 guppies, 1 Pictus catfish, 1 bristlenose pleco, 2 koi cats, and 7 skirt tetras. I'll tell you, if it were me in a tank that big, especially when you get into the 75, I would concentrate maybe on getting a larger school of something. I mean, you could go with the skirt tetras and make a larger school of the skirt tetras, because just about any tetra in a larger school looks more impressive, than, in my opinion, and the opinion of many, than just a lot of other fish in there, a lot of other species. And the guppies and the other fish probably won't disturb the school that much, so you could go that route if you wanted to. And that's actually what I might do. I might actually get another couple of bristlenose plecos, because you could easily breed bristlenose plecos in a 75, and they're really fun to breed. And I would definitely increase the koi cats. Whatever species of koi cat you have, I would get in a 75, easily get 6, 8, 10 more of them, and you'll have a school of koi cats. You could even get more than 10, I think, in that tank, if that's where you want to go. And if they're the same species especially, you'll see some schooling behavior. You'll see them hanging out, and it's really a lot more interesting to watch. So that would be my suggestion. Lee Runheim says, hi, I've only started watching your videos recently, but I saw in one of your later videos that you used to own shell dwellers. Any tips on getting them and breeding them? Actually, I still own shell dwellers. I have a 29-gallon tank with a colony of shell dwellers. In terms of getting them, and I really like them, they're fun. In terms of getting them, they can be tricky. I would say you can sometimes find them online, but they're not that easy to find in stores. If you do have local online classifieds, you might find someone. Online might be a little bit easier. Tropical Fish, I'm going to get the name wrong, but Tropical Fish Wholesalers, I think it is, or Live Fish Direct. They have like 2 names for the same company. It's a little bit confusing. Something like that. They will often stock them if you order them, and they're a little expensive to buy online, honestly. They just are. But they are, oh wow, we have 26 people in the live stream right now. That's amazing. Thanks for joining. If you don't mind hitting that like button and inviting more people in that way, that would be awesome. Oh, thank you. I'm getting some like action already. So getting them can be tricky, but I think it's livefishdirect.com. Check them out. They can usually get some in for you. There's probably some other places that can as well. Breeding them is really pretty easy as long as you provide enough floor space and some shells. You can also use PVC elbows if you want, but and you get at least 6. I would start out with 6 individuals. You can start out with young ones. That will pretty much ensure that you have a couple of males and a couple of females, and something like that. You'll have a few of each, and that will really just breeding them. Once you've got them in there, I mean, you're almost done. You just need to feed them well, and I would include some live food, especially baby brine shrimp or other similar live food, or even frozen baby brine shrimp, something like that. That will help them breed. But it's really kind of hard to stop them. I mean, they do go in cycles of breeding and not breeding so much, but yeah, it took mine a few months before they actually started breeding. I don't remember exactly how long, 2 or 3 months maybe, but then they went through a big cycle of breeding, and now they've kind of slowed down a little bit. I think they're feeling the population in the tank is a little bit big, and I did sell off a few, and I think I had the temperature running a little hot without meaning to for a little while, so I've cooled that down a little bit, and now I think they're going to start breeding again. It looks like they probably will. So there are a couple of tips there. Lots of shells, more shells than you think you need. At least 3 shells per pair and more per fish, and more is better. If you can do 6, 8 shells per fish, they'll be happy. Nancy C says, I recently acquired pink-legged bumblebees and scarlet and smoky ghost. Wow, you got quite a collection there. The pink legs are amazing. I keep bumblebees and scarlet. I haven't kept smoky ghosts, but those are cool too. So the pink-legged get big. That's quite a nice group there you've got. Grubby TV says, what tips do you give for keeping millipedes happy? I had 3 bumblebee millipedes and they didn't do well. Well, the biggest 2 tips I have for you on bumblebee millipedes: 1, temperature. They need to be warmer than 72 degrees. If they're not, they typically do not do well. Another thing, substrate. That's like the 4 keys to keeping millipedes happy are 1, substrate; 2, substrate; 3, substrate, and yeah, you get the idea. Substrate is so important. So what did you have them on? I would say the best substrate that I've worked with so far is based on a recipe by Mickey M on arachno boards. She created a thread, and I based my millipede substrate on hers. It's not exactly the same because of the ingredients that I could source. They were a little different, but they were basically the same thing. Organic compost, about 1/3 organic compost, about 1/3 non-toxic fallen hardwood leaves, and about 1/3 wood. I used, what did I use? The products I used were, sorry, my brain just fried, were alder pellets for smoking meat. They're sold for that purpose, for use in barbecues. And I used that. I used some aspen shavings and then a whole bunch of the fallen leaves. And that substrate really seems to work well for them. They're going like crazy for me now. They seem really happy, and I keep them really warm. I keep them usually around 80 degrees for me, but you don't really want to get any warmer than that. But they're doing great. So Polar said, where can you get morning geckos? Well, sometimes you can get them from me. You can always get added to my waiting list, but I do have a waiting list. I have 10 eggs cooking right now, and 1 baby that, strangely enough, showed up in my pet room running free. So some female got out somehow. I don't have any missing females, but somehow got out. I don't think it can get out of the enclosure it's in, but maybe it got out when I wasn't looking. I don't know. But when I had the door open, you could do that. Sometimes Josh's Frogs has them. You can look on the geckoforums.net. Sometimes you can find things like that. But there you go. Those are some ideas. They're kind of hard to find. Who's in the background? Photobomb. I'm not sure. I wasn't paying attention to who was walking behind. I could watch the video after and figure out who it was, but I don't know. Dark and how do I say that? Dark and Rexander. I'm not sure if you're an expert on turtles, but I have 2 radiated sliders. I want to know your opinion on what is think the best type of solution for keeping the tank clean. Well, I wouldn't consider myself an expert on turtles exactly, but I have kept radiated sliders in the past. And one idea that I have heard about that I would like to try if I ever keep red-eared sliders again, to keep them clean, is to have a separate feeding enclosure. Feed them on a very specific schedule, and then they will get used to defecating in that container after they eat, and then you can put them back in their tank, and that will cut down on the waste. I haven't tried that system, but I would like to. Oh, Cool Kid Awesome says, you're beardy, right? Loves to hiss at me. How can I calm him? Well, I would say one thing that you can always do to help calm him is And oh, I babysat your Beardy, so I can tell you something that I used to calm him was offering crickets by hand. He seemed to like that a lot, and if he associates crickets with you know, feeding him by hand, he'll tend to hiss less. Of course, slow movements near the enclosure are good too. That always helps. But that would help. Let's see. Well, there are so many. I'm not going to be able to get them all, everybody. Sorry, there are so many. I'll get a lot of them. I'll try to get as many comments as, you know, reasonably possible, but I won't be able to do them all. I'm trying to catch up. So Mr. Spudbud is here. Hello. Devin Henson says, I'm setting up a terrarium and seeded it with a few different isopod species of springtails. There's a bit of a mold problem, and I hope the springs will breed and catch up. Hopefully they will. Mold is not uncommon when you're setting up a terrarium in the first little while, and springtails will generally get to that and help take care of it. But it's not an uncommon issue. That's part of the reason why it's a good idea to set up your vivarium a month or so before you add your main display species you're keeping in there. You add the springtails and isopods so that they can help calm things down. So probably on track. HC Aqua, hello. Anything Goes says, hello, can you tell me how to care for common isopods? I've lost 3 cultures. Are they Armadillidium vulgare, the pill bugs that roll up? If so, 2 big problems that people encounter. 1, the substrate dries out completely. Actually, I'm going to tell you 3 problems. 1, substrate dries out completely. 2, substrate is too wet, like soaked, like you squeeze it and drops of water come out. And another one is not enough ventilation. You need ventilation for Armadillidium vulgare to do well. So let's see. Wow. Yeah. You know, Little Bob says his guppies are not feeding on their fry, and that, you know, I've had that experience too when I raised guppies. At first I was so concerned about making sure they didn't eat the fry, and after a while they just didn't anymore, which is kind of funny. Crested geckos are easy to take care of. Yes, they are. They're one of the easiest geckos in the world, I think, and partly because they don't need heat lamps as long as you have reasonable room temperatures. They don't need special UV lighting. They don't need, you know, those kinds of things. They'll be fine at room temperature, and they'll be fine without UV lighting. Now, not that it doesn't benefit them; it can benefit them, but that is, yeah, those are 2 things that make it really easy. And the third thing I think is this: they don't need to eat live insects. You can give them the powdered crested gecko diet, mix it with water, and that's all you need. You know, you need a good enclosure, but in terms of food, you can give them just that, and they will be okay. Now, the types of enclosures you set up for them can be pretty simple or fairly involved, and either way, there are advantages and disadvantages to keeping it easy. You can make it cheap, but a little bit more maintenance intensive, or you can make it a little more expensive, but super easy to take care of. I tend to go for the super easy to take care of, but right now we have 2 crested geckos in the live vivaria that are really easy to take care of, but a little more expensive, and then we have one that's our youngest one in one that's, you know, it's not, the maintenance isn't bad, but it's a little more effort. Okay, Vexing Cat's here too, excellent. Let's see. Anything Goes says, have you ever kept hissing cockroaches? If so, how do you breed them? Well, I've worked with them in a zoo. I haven't kept them personally at home, but as long as you have males and females and the container is warm enough, and you know, you want it in like probably low 80s would be good. And then if you've got, you give them good diet, including some oranges, they are almost certain to breed for you. And the ones in the zoo would breed all the time, and we tried to keep the males and females separately, but sometimes people would put one in the wrong enclosure, and once the females have mated, they're going to produce quite a few batches of babies afterwards. Okay. Whoa. Okay. Little Bob, it sounds like, oh, that sounds hard. When he says he could barely walk when he had the cast, and every step is painful. Ooh, sorry to hear about that. 54 Punchy says, I've had 2 red-eared sliders for almost 12 years. I do 100% water changes about every other day. So that helps keep it clean, because they are quite large and messy. That makes sense. Mr. Spudbud, cutest fish in your opinion? Hard to say. Puffers are incredibly cute, though. Pufferfish are amazing. Boxfish, I used to snorkel in Hawaii and see the boxfish. The spotted boxfish, those are incredibly cute. Dwarf seahorses, also incredibly cute. Baby anything, baby cichlids, especially, incredibly cute. David S. Zukausas, have you ever heard of purple ghost woodlice and white tiger and rubber ducky? I have heard of, I'm not sure about purple ghost. I have heard of white tiger and rubber ducky and seen pictures. Are they hard to keep? Also, any tips with Hoffman's egg and granulatus? Rapashi bugberg or Arcadia Custodian fuel? Okay, well, from what I understand, though I haven't kept white tiger or rubber ducky or purple ghost, at least rubber ducky are pretty easy to keep. They like it moist, but I don't know a whole lot else about them. But they are tropical, so they probably want, probably do well with a little bit of warmth and humidity. Are they hard to keep? Any tips with Hoffman's egg and granulatus? So Hoffman's egg I keep it. I give it a lot of ventilation. It always needs a damp spot, but the rest of the enclosure can be fairly dry. It loves cork bark to hide under, and mine are breeding. And I have a couple of batches, at least 2, I think it's more like 4 batches of babies in there right now. Some of them are getting fairly large. Some of them are probably about a centimeter, almost a centimeter long. Granulatus, maybe granulatum, is that the species you're thinking of? That one I haven't kept, so I don't know what to tell you about that one. Although I want that one because it's a giant pill bug, super cool. Rapashi bugberger I know well and I like it, and my isopods love it to death. I've never tried Arcadia Custodian fuel, so I can't really comment on them either way. Brubby TV says, thanks. I think my fail with the bumblebee millipedes was regarding temperature. The substrate I went with was a pre-mixed offering about from bugs in cyberspace. I should try millipedes again. You should. And I trust the bugs in cyberspace substrate. I've worked with Peter in various capacities. We've traded bugs. I've purchased bugs from him. He's purchased bugs from me. And what he's got is good stuff. So yeah, I'm guessing it was probably temperature. Hunter's Channel, have you ever kept hermit crabs? I have. It's been a long time, but I have. I finally stopped keeping them because at the time, this was years and years ago, the knowledge about how to properly provide a substrate for them and allow them to molt was not very good knowledge, and what was passed around as the best way to keep them was not actually a very good way, so I didn't have any, and it did not work very well. So I only had a couple of successful molts with hermit crabs, and I thought, my track record isn't very good, so I'm not going to do it until I can figure it out. I would actually like to get back into them, but they're kind of expensive to set up for and a lot of work. The crabs themselves are not expensive, but their setups kind of are, and kind of a lot of work, so I haven't gotten back into them, but hopefully I will someday. Brenna at Osku says, could a colony of Daphnia or copepods be maintained in an axolotl tank? I would love to have them to help the ecosystem, but it seems like it would be difficult with how clean axolotls need their water. Daphnia would be hard because the axolotls are going to be snapping at them. Copepods, actually, I think we've got copepods in my axolotl tank, so it can be done. And copepods are a lot less demanding in terms of suspended materials in the water, so there aren't a lot of copepods in there, just a small number of them, but there are some in there, and they seem to do okay. There are also cap snails, the tiny little Acroloxus cap snails in there as well. So yeah, copepods might be okay in small numbers. It's just not going to get a high density. And they're, like you say, axolotls need pretty clean water. You're not going to get a high density. If any of you remember when you said you had that guest starring lizard come over to my live stream. Cool. Some Egg says, are there any isopod species that are okay with handling? Most of them are. I mean, you don't want to handle them extensively, but yeah, most of them, I handle them quite a bit. Dianthus Keep says, do you know any good Canadian isopod dealers? You know, I wish I did, but I would say if you check out the Isopod Classifieds page on Facebook, you'll probably find some. Let's see. Vexing Cat says, at Aquarimax, just got an update. Just an update, the endlers I got from you have been through their quarantine great, and they have been introduced to my batch. They're doing great. Excellent. I always love to hear that. Glad they're doing well, and I hope the females you have produce lots of babies for you. I really enjoyed that strain. They're so fun. Okay. Wow, did I actually catch up? I think I did. I didn't think I would do that. I tried. Hopefully I'm not talking too fast. You can always tell me if I'm talking too fast, because sometimes I get excited and I'm trying to answer as much as I can, and then I don't realize that. People have to tell me to slow down. So Vexing Cat says they're looking so good. Excellent. I'd love to hear that. It makes me happy. And how many females did you get? I don't remember. I know you got some, but RJ loved the crickets we gave him. Oh yeah, he did. He totally did. And you know, we gave him dandelions. We gave him, which I wouldn't recommend doing from your yard necessarily if your yard ever gets sprayed. I don't spray my backyard, so I know my dandelions are safe because they haven't been sprayed since we lived here 3 years. And I get them from the middle of our big backyard so they don't get contaminated. But I just chopped up dandelions and he loved them. Dianthus keep not really a question, but I'm centipedes, which is cool. Oh, I love centipedes. I've had some. Some Egg says, you ever had chameleons? No, I babysat one, and that was fun. I babysat a Jackson's chameleon for a little while. Never actually kept one, but I am really pretty interested in it. My daughter would love to have a panther chameleon, so would I. Delvidas Zukausis says, just got Hoffman's egg in granulatum. They're still pretty small, so hoping it goes well. And ivories and hopefully some Centrobolus mozambiques, crimson blacklegs. Oh, I love the Centrobolus genus. I almost got some Centrobolus splendidus as my first millipedes, and I would still be interested in doing it. I just love their colors. So that's awesome. Hoffman's egg have done really, really well for me, so hopefully they will go well for you. They seem to grow pretty fast, surprisingly fast, considering, you know, they start out about the size of, approximately the size of a dwarf white isopod when they first are born, but they grow pretty fast, so hopefully they'll do well for you. And let me know how those granulatum do. I really want to keep granulatum someday. David Hansen says, for the mold issue, should I cut down on the humidity until it clears up or just let the microphone do their thing? How much ventilation do you have in there? It's good to have high humidity depending on what you're keeping in there. You don't want to cut it down too much. And the microphone will usually do well as long as there's some ventilation, and I wouldn't worry about the humidity too much. If you're maintaining it at the level you're going to maintain your stock in when you put it in, I would keep it there. Animals are life. Any tips for taming a Crestie that's crazy while all others have calmed down? You know, sometimes it's hard to say. Cresties are definitely born with personalities. Some of them are wilder than others. It took a long time for us to tame down one of our Cresties. His name is Jake, and he took forever. I don't know. He still is not really excited about taking crickets from our hands. Our other Cresties are really excited about it. He's not, and I don't know why. He'll occasionally do it, but not that much. He will eat crested gecko diet from our hands. But he took forever. He took like a year to tame down, and the others did not. Of course, we got him as an adult, which has something to do with it. I would say one thing you can do, if you associate something that they like with having, you know, attention from you, if you put a little bit of honey on your finger and try to touch their nose gently to it, and they get to lick a little bit of honey off when you have them out, that could help sometimes, if they can associate something positive. Vexing Cat about the endlers. Oh gosh, numbers. It was a pair in juveniles plus 2 extra females that didn't make the shipping. Oh, I remember that, yeah. So hopefully some of the juveniles are also females, and with at least that pair, you'll get it going, so that's good. Cool Kid Awesome. We tried dandelions, they didn't like them. Really? Did you chop them up fine? Because that's what I do. I chop them up really fine. And he just totally went for them. I don't know. Will you ever get a blue-tongued skink? I hope so. I love blue-tongued skinks. They're probably one of my favorite lizards that I've never kept. But yeah, I probably will. Little Bob says, we don't spray our garden. I remember when I was like 7, my mom and I took our Beardy outside to explore this huge space. He explored about 10 feet, decapitating every daisy and dandelion he saw. Let's see. Let's see. David Hansen, it's an exoterra tank, so plenty of ventilation. I spray it down once a day. Same humidity as I would for my eventual species. Okay, I would leave it like that then. HC Aqua, hey Aquarimax, I caught a praying mantis. You know how to take care for one? Yeah, I've cared for several. Do you have any idea which species it is? You're in Hawaii, am I right? I'm not sure which species it is. Probably a Carolina mantis. I don't recall if I ever saw any while I was there. But yeah, they're actually pretty easy to take care of. They don't need really large enclosures. They need to be able to hang upside down to molt if they're not adults yet, from something high up in the enclosure without touching anything else. You'll be able to hang upside down and then be able to molt out of their skin and still not touch anything. So that's important. Some ventilation is good. And I would say They really like flying insects. Crickets are not the best insect for them. Roaches are good, flies are good. If you're able to catch insects outside with a reasonable probability that they have not been sprayed with pesticides, you're probably good. But those are some things that will help. They do need a little bit of misting once in a while to be able to drink. Anything Goes says, my new flagtail centipedes will not eat. I got it a week ago. So you could try some pre-killed crickets, or try offering a mealworm. I have offered mealworms to centipedes that, as long as the mealworm's active, it seems to help, that are not necessarily excited about eating. If it's only been a week, you might want to wait a little while before you try feeding it again. But sometimes my reluctant eater centipedes have gone for mealworms and pre-killed. Like a pre-killed cricket, they will go for that sometimes, so you can try that. David Tsukasa says, how far do you have to be from roads to collect leaves? I would be as far as possible, as far as, I try to go up in when I collect leaves, besides the leaves that I can collect in my backyard, because like I said, I don't spray and I don't collect too closely to other houses, and we have half an acre of space. It's pretty easy to get some good leaves on my property. But when I go collecting in the mountains, I try to get quite a distance from the road. A lot of times I'll go, quite a bit up into the canyon, so I'm pretty safe. As far as you can go. Also, there's lots of dogs too, but a big part. Granulatum apparently like more moisture than Hoffman's. I've got holes on the lid, maybe small. 35. Okay. Yeah, Granulatum may. I don't know much about Granulatum though. But as long as you've got ventilation for both of them, that should help. Okay. So there's a mesh on the Hoffman, so how to know if there's not enough ventilation? Are there telltale signs in the tubs? Well, if you're getting mold, that's probably a sign. You should be able to feel the surface of the substrate in terms of ventilation and humidity and how they're connected. If you can feel the surface of the substrate and it's damp all the way around, that's probably too damp, and the ventilation can help with that. If you do always have to have a damp place, especially under a hide, but hopefully that helps. The mesh should be good ventilation. Vexing Cat says, I miss having reptiles. I think with cats and dogs in the house, it's better not to keep anything my other pets might think is food. That can be tricky. We don't have any dogs at the moment, but we do have a cat. It's amazing what the cat has learned to deal with. But, okay. Yeah, I see what you mean. But our cat has learned to not attack the bird and not attack rats. We used to have rats, and cat learned not to attack them. And it's pretty good about the reptiles now, too. But it took a while to learn that. HC Aqua says, I only keep crickets, thanks for the info. Oh, you're welcome. And crickets are generally not the best. It depends on what you feed them and so on. And there's conflicting reports on whether or not crickets work for mantids. Cool Kid Awesome, do you think we could buy some crickets from you? Very possibly. I'd have to see how many I have, but I usually have enough. Delvidus Zukasa says, I can't get further than the 800, maybe 1 kilometer from roads and no woods around, sadly. If you can get 1 kilometer from roads, I think that's enough. I don't always go that far, so. Okay, and thanks again, HC Aqua, for joining us. Vexing Cat, all the ball pythons I used to have were very gentle. I worked with a very gentle one at the zoo. David Sukas, thanks for the information so much. You're welcome. Have you kept ivories? I have a pair of ivories right now. And I think the female may have been laying eggs because she disappeared for a couple of weeks. She could have been molting and she could have been laying eggs. We'll see. Animals Are Life, could you do a vid on breeding crickets? If you already have, sorry for asking. No problem, you can totally ask. I do have a video on crickets, and if you do search for cricket breeding on the internet, on YouTube, breeding crickets, it will show up on the first page, I think. So you can check that out. And I'm going to have to go in just a second here. I got to film another video, but I'll try to answer a couple more questions. Thanks again for joining, everyone. 54 Punchy says, I used to have a cockatiel that loved to harass my son's lizards. I can see that being, yeah, problematic. Anything Goes says, any tips on tiny baby superworms? I have a superworm breeding colony. Also, thank you. Let's see. Superworm breeding colony. I have not bred superworms yet. I've been meaning to try that, but I haven't yet. The Animal Kingdom says, can I use leaves for my garden that are baked at 200 degrees for my dwarf white isopods? The isopods should be arriving soon. You can if they are non-toxic leaves. That should be fine. And they're fallen naturally, you know, from the tree. Are there any active species of millipedes such as ivories? Thanks a million. You know, ivories are one of the most active isopods, I mean, the most active millipedes from what I've heard. And I have noticed mine being quite active and spending a lot of time to the surface. I haven't noticed as many other millipedes doing that as much, but my Spirostreptus species one is pretty close. It's active at the surface quite a bit. Okay. Well, I had better go. It's just about time. So I wish I could answer more questions, but I've got to go. So thank you for joining. Thank you for hitting that like button. I really appreciate it. And have a great night.